Happy to present here. It's my first time here, so bear with me. I'm a PhD student from the University of Southampton. I'm part of the Agents, Interaction, and Complexity group. And today I'll be presenting our work in which we found that the display of system confidence information can help improve the use of autonomous systems, especially in what we refer to as non-specialist applications. So this work was done during the first year of my PhD in collaboration with my supervisors Enrico Costanza, who is in attendance today, and Gopal Ramchurn. This work is funded by the EPSRC UK under the ORCID project. So most of the research around autonomous systems have been done in what they refer to as safety critical systems, but now there are now more research around autonomous systems in non-specialist applications. So these are applications in which the users are not trained to use the system, so in everyday settings or in mundane applications. And practical examples of this are the Roomba robots and the Nest thermostat. In fact, there's been research around the Nest thermostat suggesting that actually, even though people are willing to integrate their daily activities or their daily life with autonomous products, the fact that because users find it difficult to recognize how well these systems work can cause user frustration and confusion. This means that the user interaction with the autonomous system decreases over time and can potentially lead to the abandonment of the technology. And so we were interested in finding out how can we then design interfaces that would help people to use autonomous system. One design interface that has been used in different but similar types of system is confidence information. We refer to confidence information as the estimated probability that an inference made by the autonomous system or any type of system is correct, given that the system has the correct model to interpret its data. In short, for example, imagine your Nest thermostat telling you, okay, I'm 70% confident that you are here, 30% possibly it's just your cat, but based on that, I'm going to set the heating on. But the recent research around the use of confidence information has limitations, which we addressed in our study. So one of those limitations include how does confidence information actually help people's use of autonomous systems, especially when the use of autonomous systems bear consequences for the users. Because in real life situations, when we use autonomous systems, there are certain risks. Losing money, or even losing our lives, right? And another limitation is understanding the qualitative aspects of the way that people use autonomous systems, confidence information, sorry. So how do people interpret confidence information? Is it the same? Or do people also form different strategies in the use of confidence information? Another part of our work, or another contribution of our work, is in the way that we study this interaction. Most of our work in the lab that studied interaction with autonomous systems has been done in the lab, especially, in the field trial. So especially because these are energy-related contexts. An example of that is the work by Costanza and others, and also Alan and others, which actually will be presented tomorrow here at CHI as well. Notwithstanding the importance of field trials, we were interested in then using lab studies to complement this type of evaluation. And a particularly challenging aspect of that is ecological validity, right? Lab studies have low ecological validity. And so we looked at different research methods then that we can incorporate in our study to increase the ecological validity of lab studies. In particular, we looked at behavioral economics research methods. So experiments in behavioral economics typically incorporate money in what we refer to as choice situations. So subjects will be asked, for example, to choose an option between multiple options, and usually the chosen option has financial implications for the user. And this has an associated opportunity cost, because choosing one option means that you cannot choose the other. An example of this, for example, what if you're asked, would you rather choose a 70% chance to win $10 or 100% chance to win $5. Instead of just money, we placed tasks that involve either interacting with an agent or autonomous system or simply manual tasks. So in this situation, there's also opportunity cost. If you invest time interacting with an agent or with an autonomous system, that means you are losing the opportunity to then do a task that is completely manual, especially if there's limited time available and if there's limited tasks available. So we recruited 60 participants from the population of the university. They have different backgrounds, and even though this is the case, we made sure that the tasks we chose were suitable for them. We asked them to complete up to 30 tasks. In fact, there are 2 tasks that are available to choose from, in which they can choose, they can select and switch between them at any given point in time. I will detail them more later. And they were asked to complete up to 30 tasks under a specific time limit, under 30 minutes, as accurately as they could. We also had different incentive schemes to test the effectiveness of our research, of our study method, but the detail of that will be in the paper. In terms of the confidence information, there were 2 main conditions. So the first one is the display of the confidence. So they had 5 levels. So our participant can either choose to do a manual task, as I mentioned earlier, or looked at an agent task with, that shows the different levels of confidence. So in particular, we use 5 different levels of confidence, varied from very low to very high, and the color tells the intensity. The color intensity tells the different confidence level. The second condition instead is obviously without confidence. So either they choose the manual task or they just choose an agent task that does not show the confidence. So in detail about the manual task, so we ask people to either choose to correct for grammatical mistakes, to look for grammatical mistakes in an English paragraph. So for example, here the word "are" is incorrect, so just need to replace that with an "is." That will be fine. Instead, the agent tasks is a transcribing task. So they were presented with this foreign language text, which is handwritten, and they had to type it up. But to put the agent there, or it's a Wizard of Oz actually, we put an OCR that would automatically do that for them. But the catch is that the agent can make mistakes, so it's not completely perfect. And so the task may need to be correcting at times by the user. This actually interacts well with the incentive schemes that I was talking about earlier, but again, more detail about that in the paper. So when an agent task becomes available, as this is autonomously done in the background, they appear in this list, and the user has 3 main options to choose from. They can either review an agent task, basically do the process as I described earlier, or blindly accept an agent task, which means basically submitting the task without reviewing it. This is very important, as this sort of refers to the trust, your trust in the agent. As it means, for example, if you press blindly accept, you're saying, okay, I completely put the control to you, even if it's going to cost me money. So again, it's a very important concept of the study. Or again, just simply ignore and use the manual task, do the manual task. So this is the overall UI that the participants saw when they are in the confidence condition. So at the top, you can see the the detail of during the study. Then here is the manual switch, in which when selected, you can see the manual task. And here is the list of agent tasks. And as you can see in the workspace, the agent tasks available there. In particular, it's showing a medium 1. Or for others, they simply saw nothing. So we collected a number of data, but I'll just mention this once for the presentation. So we looked at the number of manual and agent tasks they completed, and also we looked at the ones per confidence level. We also looked at the number of blindly accepted agent tasks that they did, also per confidence level, and we asked when we did a semi-structured interview at the end of the study. For the quantitative data, we performed ANOVA and multiple ANOVA tests, and for the interview, we transcribed it and open-coded it through thematic analysis. So I'll be talking about the main findings of the study. The next few slides will contain the quantitative data when all of them are statistically significant. So we looked at the proportion of agent tasks completed out of all the agent tasks, out of all completed tasks across the different confidence conditions. So we found that our participants completed more agent tasks when the display of confidence was available than when it's not. So this is what we hoped for, which basically means that confidence information does make a difference and should be included in the feedback of the autonomous system. Again, just to recap, because I'll be talking about this in the next few slides, there are 5 different confidence levels. So in terms of the agent tasks, the completion of agent tasks for confidence level, we found that there were more agent tasks completed when the agent has very high, as opposed if the agent task has a very low or to medium confidence level. Again, this is as we hope for, as it means that basically people interact more with the agent when there's very high confidence. In terms of blind acceptance, so we looked at the proportion of blindly accepted agent tasks out of all the completed agent tasks, and we found that there were more agent tasks blindly accepted when the display of confidence was available than when it is not. Again, saying to us that the confidence makes a difference even in the delegation of control to the agent, or the full delegation of the control to the agent. And also in terms of the confidence level, there were more blindly accepted agent tasks when the agent has very high and high confidence level than when there are lower ones, so than when they're very low to medium, which means that people appropriated the way that they use the blind acceptance. In terms of our qualitative data, we found that people actually had different interpretations of the confidence information, and some people found it useful in the fact that they felt that it was a good indicator of how well the agent worked, but others completely disregarded it. So for example, in this quote, you can see that it's not saying that it's completely right, it's saying it's confidence, which is true. People also adopted different strategies around confidence information. So we found that some people worked through the higher ones first and then left the lower ones later, but a few participants looked at the lower level confidence first before looking at the higher ones. And typically this is related to their engagement with the agent. So if they were feeling that they would like to work with the agent more, then they would look at the lower ones first. In terms of blind acceptance, so we found sort of a difference in terms of trust, which was explicitly mentioned in some of the interviews. So for example, when there's confidence information displayed and when the confidence level is high, people would relate to it as being able to trust the agent, whereas without the confidence information, it's purely based on luck. Instead, there are also people that did not blindly accept, and this is true for both confidence condition and the condition without the confidence. And it's usually related to social or to personal attitude towards autonomous systems in general. So not just in our software, in the software that was used in the study, but throughout any types of similar systems. So people would mention, I don't trust software anyway, it's just me. Or the other could say, to choose between my error and the software error, I'd rather choose mine. So there's always sort of a people sort of hindered to use an agent or to delegate to an agent just because it's their personal feeling. So to summarize, we use behavioral economics research methods to test and to investigate how the display of confidence information can affect people's usage of autonomous systems, especially in non-specialist application. And the main implication of our work is that confidence information should be included in the feedback of autonomous systems, but it is not like a 100% guarantee that people will use autonomous systems as they should be. I mean, it increases their use, as we've seen in our data, but because in terms of our qualitative data, we found that people would use different sort of ways to use the confidence information that would refer to their use of the autonomous system. just a sort of also advertise. There is a presentation, as I mentioned earlier, related to this work, but field trial. And also, my advisors are looking for a postdoc. Find us, and we'll talk about that. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Hi, it's an interesting study. I'm
Thank
wondering, did the users who did not have any feedback about the confidence from their agents, how much understanding did they have beforehand of what the general performance of the agents would be? Like, did they know it was 60%, or did they just not know anything?
Right. So they, good question. So they had the training session before they start the actual study. But it was a limited session, so they couldn't actually find out how well the system performed. It's true, there were some technical people in the no confidence as well, but there were also some people with a technical background. So yeah, in terms of like actually understanding the capability of the agent here, it was quite limited in that sense. So
it's like their observations and also maybe their bias towards machines, kind of.
In a way, yes. I guess so. You could say that. But that's also what we're looking for, right? We don't want to sort of just focus on our software here. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Emily from Google.
Hi.
Hi. Great talk.
Thank you.
I was wondering if so participants had to complete up to 30 tasks in a 30-minute time limit. Were they allowed to finish early? Because I guess I'm wondering, in terms of crowd workers might want to complete as many tasks as possible in as short of a time as possible, so if they can just click accept on everything and move on, as opposed to waiting the full 30 minutes, and then that would incentivize them to check some of them.
Thank you. Good question. The full detail is in the paper, but just to quickly answer, so they actually had the limit of the amount of in terms of incentive. So they had £10 limit, which then means that if you reach the £10, then even if you haven't reached 30, you would have finished the task. So yeah, does that fully answer the question?
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, yeah. My name is Vasant. It's a quick question here, follow up to the first one. Have you guys considered faking it, like give fake confidence values and see that as a condition?
In a way, it's faked because actually,
okay.
Sorry, I didn't completely mention that. So it is fake. So even the very high ones, there were mistakes. Right. In fact, in this particular scenario, the high is actually, in terms of accuracy, higher than the very high. So it is completely fake.
Like just random.
That we are planning to do that. Actually, that's part of the limitations of the study, which we wrote in the paper. Thank you for the question. Thank you.